Hi, everyone. Lauren here. Welcome back to another episode of Energy Works Big Ideas. I'm really excited and a little apologetic as well for this next podcast. Excited because Dr. Sara Allen is my guest, and she is amazing. She's one of Donna Eden's senior faculty members. She's been with Donna pretty much from the beginning. And that is just a tiny thumbnail of what she does. She's an unbelievable healer and teacher. And she also, like Donna, sees energy, which is one of those superpowers that everyone in the energy world covets. And in this interview with Sara, we go deep, and I again cover some of these topics that have been just gnawing at my brainstem. It's kind of a gross metaphor, but specifically death and dying and what happens after we die. And I know that Sara has had a lot of experience in these realms, being a facilitator and a healer. And because she sees energy, I also wanted to ask her some of these juicy questions. So the interview is off the hook. And Sara is such a brilliant communicator that when she talks, you just open your ears. Okay, so the apologetic part is my internet sucks. It's so bad. I live in the woods in rural Montana. And I have really bad internet. And so when I talk, it's like I'm being a little dramatic. It's not quite that horrible, but it's not great. I hope that you can get the great wisdom that Sara shares. So sit back and enjoy. I'm so excited to be here with you today, Dr. Sara Allen. I'm just so thrilled to introduce you to our audience. So thank you for taking your time today.
Absolutely. Absolutely excited to talk about big ideas.
So I know you, Sara, from working together in Eden Method. You've been a senior teacher there for as long as I've known Donna. And you do so many other things. And when I was figuring out your intro and how to introduce you, I mean, I can list all your degrees and all of that. But really, I think it would be most fascinating if you just would tell people, what do you do?
You sound like my mom. I remember my husband used to ask me, what do I tell people you do? And so my elevator speech would be something like, I take ancient medicine practices, Ayurvedic and ancient Chinese medicine practices, and I use them for modern issues, for modern minds, for modern ideas, modern bodies. So we get the ancient principles and the medicine for this time. So it's a translation. It's like it's kind of a golden thread that's always run through healing processes are these ancient traditions. And when we think about modern medicine as we know it, allopathic medicine, it's really only about 100 years old. And, they didn't have anesthetic until after the Civil War. So when we talk about healing traditions that have been around at least 5,000 years, and the only reason we know this 5,000 years is because that's when they started to record it. So it was an oral tradition before then. So these are the principles that I use, these ancient principles, and apply them to modern problems. So that's kind of what I do.
I like that. I like that a lot. Of course, I love that because that's sort of the field that I work in as well. But I don't do what you do, which is working on clients on a table one-on-one. And so, I just had the opportunity to interview Donna a short time ago. And so I'm going to ask some of the same questions to you. But I'm going to start with, so if you know Donna Eden, you know some of her work, you know that she healed herself from MS, you know that she sees energy, all of those things. It's kind of like in the field that we know about Donna. But what people don't know about you, you're one of Donna's senior teachers. You've been with her for just decades. And you have shared as well with us and with your clients, I assume as well, you also see energy. and work with energy from that visual way, the same way. Well, I don't know the same way, because here's my question. What does it look like to you? Everybody always wants to know, what does it look like that you see energy? What does that mean?
You know, it's a great question, and it's my normal. So I don't really know what it's like kind of not to have that sense, that ability to do that. That I think it's actually technically called synesthesia. You know, people that have senses that kind of mix. You know, so I see colors, I smell flavors. So there's lots of cross-pollination in my sensory abilities. But when we talk about what it looks like, I remember when I first started doing this, I did not know that you put somebody on a table, that you charged them money for it, or I didn't understand clients, I didn't understand a practice. But what I would do is I would take their colors and I would kind of fluff them up and make them pretty. So I would take these colors and I would move them around, and then they would sit up and, or wherever, and they would say, my gosh, I feel better. And I'm thinking, well, you look better. And what I literally meant was their colors were better. They were, there didn't feel like there was strain here, and there felt like relaxation there. And there was a pulsing that would begin to happen in a field, or a glow or an excitement. Certain constellations and things would light up. So those are the early days of when I had no idea what I was doing. I would just move the colors around so they would look better to me, and then they would feel better. So I knew there was some correlation between what I was seeing and what was happening. But I never knew that this made you would change a tissue, which, would heal a pimple or would, or fix a hip. I mean, it just never occurred to me, all that kind of stuff. So it's been one of these journeys where I just did not know I had this until somebody told me I did. And so I remember this is not a good story, but I was 17 years old before I really understood that not everybody saw things in the way I saw things. And I had my best friend. We were freshmen in college, and there was a German exchange student. His name was Wolfgang, and Wolfgang was there. And we were in the cafeteria, and I looked at Wolfgang, and he had this kind of funny green thing on the front of his body. And I go, oh, what's that funny thing? And Linda looks at him and says, what funny thing? I said, the green thing, the big green thing, that's right there. And I could see immediately she did not see what I saw. So we went to a counselor, our freshman psych 101, and he happened to be a counselor too. So he was a psych professor. And he told me I was schizophrenic or demon possessed. And so in those, for about 4 or 5 years, after I realized that I was something that most people didn't see. And I remember asking her, Linda, my friend, I said, do you see fingers? And she said, yes. I said, do you see? No. So we went through this whole thing with what she saw and what I saw, what she saw and what I saw. And I just remembered I got more and more scared. And it was very, very closeted, incredibly closeted. And so my ability to see energies and understand what energies were, for some reason, in 1981, I decided to hop a plane to Hawaii. I still understand how I paid for it. And I took Reiki. And somehow that started to organize. That had an organizing force to me, because it was the first time I really understood all this mishigosh that I see around people actually has information, actually has intelligence, and actually... So it was incredibly formative to me to start to understand that this was a stream of energy that I could manage and change. That was a new thing to me. And one of the things, I was just talking about this yesterday with students, with students about what disease looks like in the body. And, people will come into my office and they'll say, I just know you see all my darkness and my disease. And I'm like, and it's just, Lauren, it's just the opposite. It's like the sicker we are, the more beautiful we get. It's like you can just see the effort and the comfort and the integrity and the rescue of all the systems that are really stepping up to help the sick system. we get so magnificent. So when people walk in the door, I don't look for the disease. First of all, I don't see it. I see what's working. And so I think what makes Donna different and what maybe makes me different and why Donna's kind of worldview really is so meaningful to me is Donna and I both find what's working and we expand that. And we make that the dominant force in the system. So we really, and the irony is you have to have a good energy to heal anything. You have to have something working in the system to heal anything. So we look for those islands in the body of wellness. And what's really interesting to me, I'd have to say the last 10 years, what often is coming in the door, because I love acupoint so much. And I know you and I have had classes together where I just it's like a poet. It's like I just hang on the words of the interpretations and out of the Chinese medicine, what the Chinese intended for this point, and these whole universes that sit in a single acupoint. And so what's happened a lot out of that richness is when people walk in, they look like a night sky to me sometimes. Like they walk in the door and they've got certain points that are popping out and it's saying, and I call them constellations. And so their bodies are reaching out with the formulas, with the recipes that their physiology need. So even more so, people's energies, when you start to love an energy as a healer, those energies walk in the door and say, love me, love me, love me. This is what I need. I need it here. I need it here. So they start to light up like constellations. Fabulous. It's really exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so exciting. It's so amazing to see that the energies are sort of guiding you and telling you. I mean, we just had a conversation yesterday in my advanced group talking about the field and what the field means. And someone was saying, that these different, what we would say inanimate objects like flowers or rocks or whatever, we're calling her and saying, move me here, put me this way, right? And so you're saying of a similar, of course, we know that the rocks are sentient beings as the flowers and the plants, right? And so they're also giving us this instruction. I love that that's coming from your clients as well. I wonder if you would share, what is the craziest miracle case of healing that you've ever participated in?
Oh my God. Well, there's a lot. One of my favorite ones, because I kind of learned why Jesus said when he would heal people, don't tell anybody. I learned why. This is the story of where I really understood that. So the story I think goes, Christ healed a woman at the well, and he said, whatever you do, don't tell anybody I healed you. And I understand. So I had a woman that came to see me. She was stage 4 ovarian cancer. And ovarian cancer, the creepy thing about ovarian cancer is you really don't notice it until you're in trouble. So it's one of these really, you're usually buried in the disease by the time you have a symptom. So, and in those days, it was even worse with the. So anyway, she comes to see me and she's in a support group and where they actually do chemotherapy together. They actually play cards and gin rummy or something like that while these women are going through this phase. And she had 2 sessions and was all better. Now you understand it's never about me. It's always about them. The Buddhists talk about how healing is the 49th person that taps you on the shoulder. They have all these weird things with numbers. So, it's about her and about her readiness and her steps. And then, then I show up. And so everybody thinks it's me and it's not me. So she has this, she gets poked, prodded, goes to Mayo Clinic, x-rayed, all that kind of stuff, gone. So of course, all her women, her friends in her chemotherapy group end up on my doorstep. Literally, I show up on Monday morning, 7:00, and there's cars in the parking lot already. So this idea of wild healings, the illusion that it's the healer is an illusion. It's that person stepping into those miracles. Spontaneous healings happen all the time, but that spontaneous healing has been building in that aura, just like it takes time for a disease to build in the aura. So that solution is there. Now, if you understand physics and you understand that everything, as Bruce Lipton talks about, the only true science on the planet is physics, he's absolutely right, because it just talks about for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, just reinforces, E equals MC squared, cause and effect. So what that says when we talk about a healing, for every disease that is building in the body, it's physics, it's science, there must be a solution building at the same pace, at the same time in the body. So what healing is leaving the path of the disease and stepping over into other path of wellness. They run like frontage roads on highways. So what a healing is the ability to step into what is already present in your own system. So we should be capable, all of us, of spontaneous healings.
So that leads me right to the next question, which I get all the time, and I'm sure you do too. When energy medicine, let's say, because that's the modality that you and I both work in, whether we call it that directly or not, but when that doesn't work, why doesn't it work? And I've had the stories, I'm sure you have too. My cousin, brother, friend, sister, daughter, whatever, they do the green juice. They've done the meditation retreats. They've gone to Hippocrates Institute. They've gone to acupuncture. They've done everything. And they are still, or they're a young child. They don't have karma. Why doesn't it work when it doesn't work?
A child doesn't have karma? I'm
well,
sorry.
I mean, like a baby that's born with cancer or something.
Right.
Like, that's a tough one, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The problem, those problems are hard to explain, but they can be explained when you start to see that everything is physics. Everything is yin and yang and neutral. So when we talk about the physiology, we're always and only talking about the yin and yang. So all those things you're talking about, even though they're glorious, spiritually centered principles in their healing modalities, for instance, meditation, we use that as a healing tool. That principle, if that is in the yin and yang, all you're going to get is more yin and yang. The only thing that collapses that disease is going to be the third thing, the spiritual component. It's the fulcrum. It's most of who we are. So what happens is in the way we present and go after disease, we're working on the smallest parts of us. So let me give you an illustration, and I may have shared this with you at some point, Lauren, but it comes from Fritjof Capra, called the Tao of Physics. And Fritjof is a physicist, and in the lineage of all the greats, Oppenheimer and Einstein and Bohm and all of them. And he wrote a book in 1975 that talks about how modern day physics, the science of physics, aligns beautifully. You can see the physics in ancient Chinese medicine and ancient Ayurvedic medicine. So this idea of that when they talk about the physics of it, you're literally just talking about the dirt. We're earth. But there is another component, and it's the biggest piece of us. So when we talk about who we are 99.99999% spirit. We're less than 0.0000.1 matter, M-A-T-T-E-R. Actually, if you take all the spirit out of my physiology, I will be a speck of dust. So this thing about ashes, dust to dust, another ancient principle that physics supports. So in my physiology, Fritjof uses this example. So he talks about atoms. We're all made up of the same thing, the four same building blocks, every single thing, every stone, every leaf, every object on the planet is built of atoms. So in our physiology, we have 7 octillion atoms. That's 27 zeros. I didn't even know there was a number called octillion. So 27 zeros. So when Fritjof talks about and tries to illustrate how incredible, how much spirit we really are, he takes the average orange and he says, okay, this orange only has 12 trillion. So we're going to take one of those atoms out of that orange. And in order to do that, we're going to have to blow it up to the size of San Francisco. So that one atom So we can see it with our eye. We have to blow it up to the size of San Francisco. And because I want to see the nucleus with my naked eye, 49 square miles is approximately what San Francisco is. That nucleus would be visible sitting in the middle of San Francisco, and it would be no bigger than a grain of sand. The electron for that atom, that single atom, would be down by the bay circulating San Francisco. And in between all of that is space. They call it in physics potential. They call it in ancient Chinese medicine no dash thing. So we are almost all no dash thing. And what happens is when we nurture the biggest part of us, which is the no dash thing, the air, they call it in physics an electron cloud. In Ayurvedic medicine, they call it the aura. So this auric field, we are really almost all space. So we spend all this time nurturing, dressing, supplementing, loving the least part of us. And if we learn to move the electron cloud, the physiology, the least part of us follows. So in all those spontaneous healings, I'm telling you what that physiology did. It stopped following the physiology's path and started to follow the electron cloud's path. The second we move into the electron cloud, we have absolutely no resistance. So what the Ayurvedics understood and the ancient Chinese shamans understood is that if you nurture the biggest part of you, the soul part of you, that is the part with leverage. So anytime I've seen a healing that has been spontaneous, or if there's ease in a healing, it's because we've leaned into the electron cloud. We've leaned into the auric field. We've leaned into the spirit of the matter. So that's how it happens. So those folks, and so no matter, even if it's, Lauren, even if it's like, oh, I'm going to go meditate and, do all these fun things and everything, even though we feel like it's spirit, if we are grinding it out, we're in yin and yang. Does that make sense to you? So even the most spiritual of quests can turn into hard labor.
Oh, wow. That's so fascinating. I love basically leveraging the soul. That's got to be the name of something. Maybe your book, Leveraging the Soul.
It's a fulcrum. It's the fulcrum that does all the heavy lifting.
Yeah. I was just reading an article that you wrote, and I'm also reading Atul Gawande's Being Mortal. And one of the things that he has a whole section on, and you kind of touched on in this article, is, in this world we live in, we, like you said, we spend all of our time on that 0.0001. And especially as we're coming to end of life, it's all about saving, extending, what can you do? Stage 4, 3 different cancers. I'm still going to do clinical trials. And there's rarely, and this is what he's talking about in his book, but there's rarely this conversation of, okay, an acceptance, you are going to die. It is going to happen soon. And let's prepare for that. That's not really the conversation that's being had enough. I mean, it does happen, but it's not happening enough in the medical world. And I just wonder if you, talk about that. This article that you were interviewed for was talking about end-of-life care, and you were saying basically what you're saying here about leveraging into the spirit. So I wonder, when you have clients on the table that you're like, this is not the miracle healing. This is not going to happen for them. I know that. I feel that. Or if you do, and then do you go to the next place of, let's talk about that you're dying and let's support that? How does that work for you with clients?
Well, there is, I have a class. It's probably, I would have to say, out of all the classes that I teach, and I've got about 50, 60, I think I've written, the dying class, I have an energy medicine for the terminally ill client. And one of the things that starts to happen is there's never more spiritual work than in that dying class. And a lot of students that take that class to help clients who are getting ready to pass come back and say, this is for the living, this class, because it is. What it does is we start to change how triple warmer in the body feels about living. And what becomes really interesting is triple warmer, the way triple warmer was originally designed in the original self before the world lost its mind, was triple warmer was there to facilitate gathering things for us that we needed. His original design was to sit on the horizon and look for the elk for the winter. His original design was to look for the coming winter storm. That was his original design. His original design was to track things that served us, as opposed to this insane, smothering, autoimmune kind of love that he has, that we talk a lot about. So what happens is triple warmer is invested in you. If you're not invested in your soul, triple warmer is not going to be invested in your soul either. If you're invested in your soul, all of a sudden triple warmer starts to see that as important and begins to facilitate and look for things that support that. So when triple warmer starts to understand that his mission for the physiology is coming to an end, he shifts his focus and understands it's about the eternal aspect of why you came. And of course, triple warmer has had his finger on that pulse too. So he has an idea of what your original purpose was and begins to facilitate that. So let's face it, the only original purpose we have is to be happy and find love. Be love, find love, that's it. So when he starts to understand that the original purpose was to be here and be happy and be in love, he's like, duh. So he begins to facilitate that. So it's really interesting, people do seem to come alive on their deathbeds, those last months of who they are, because they're literally freed from the turmoil and the burden, what the Chinese medicine ancients called it, the lead weight of existence, this lead weight of being in this physiology. We're no longer in that. We don't have that burden to carry any longer, but we still have our feet in this life. So we're still able to eat chocolate and have sex and kiss people. We're not we're not disembodied yet. So it can be incredibly blissful when triple warmer starts to understand, and he begins to gather memories, people that we love, things that we did that were wonderful, all those things. You begin to look forward to being disembodied, meaning, oh my gosh, I get to see those family members that have gone on before. You begin to look forward to that next phase. When triple warmer starts to see that it really is all about the soul, that the only reason you've ever incarnated is to grow the soul, he gets on board with that. And that becomes a really nice union. So these moments with the energy medicine that people are dying, I'm telling you, it's my favorite. I know it sounds weird, but it is. It's just literally the most joyous fun I have is working with the dying client. It's just amazing because of that state of mind, and because you get to greet all their best selves right before they go meet their best self.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So just a little quick, and people on our podcast know a little bit of this, but I just want to say that triple warmer is an energy system that we all have in our body. That's primary goal is to keep you alive. It does many other things, disperses energy throughout the whole body. But what Sara is saying is that it actually, if you can bring that into leveraging the soul, that's really when triple warmer starts to come alive and experience we say he because it's a very masculine energy, the purpose of aligning you with your soul's purpose, which is love. So,
yeah.
Okay, so here it is. You've heated up. This is perfect. You're teeing me up for every next question. So, have you had experiences with communication with people that have passed over? And can you share a little bit about that? And I don't like the word proof because that is so mechanistic, but that's what everybody wants to know. Everyone wants to know what happens when we die, and can we communicate with the other side? And then there's all of these stories that accrue that are quote proof, right? And in Donna's book, at the end of her first book, Energy Medicine, she talks about this being that came beyond was giving her information that there's no way that she could have had. And there's many of those stories of, near-death experiences, people coming back and sharing things there's no way they could have known. So I want to pose that same question to you. Have you communicated with people that have passed beyond in a way that that it is truly someone who's passed beyond, as opposed to your own kind of unconscious mind conjuring, something to make you feel better.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, nobody goes anywhere. The room is full. Your room is full. It's full. Nobody goes anywhere. We're crowded. Nobody goes anywhere. So it's always an odd question I get. It's like, why don't you all know you're fish in an ocean? It's like the fish does a fish have awareness that they're a fish in the ocean? And so when you have that awareness that you are a fish in an ocean, when you have that awareness, this is not a strange conversation. And you're right, proof goes right out the window because you're normal. So when people want to know if nobody goes anywhere, that's what happens. You just slip out. There's a disbursement. It looks to me like Alka-Seltzer. Drop, drop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what a relief it is. Remember that old ad when you drop the Alka-Seltzer? That's what it looks like. Like people just kind of disperse. And that disbursement, you're still here. You're still here. You're just now disembodied. So the other thing is we do it. Every single human on the planet, and probably the four-leggeds as well, do it all the time. We leave our physiology all the time and come back. We leave and come back. We leave and come back. We are fish in an ocean. So when that happens, when I hear people say that, I know that they're still experiencing all the good things that happen because you're a fish in the ocean. You're still getting the benefit of being a fish in the ocean. You just don't know it. So this idea that, and how it often comes in the sensation of a sense. And most of us always only want one or two senses. We want see and we want hear. Those are the two that we believed. We don't believe the taste. We don't believe the feel. But we believe the see and we believe the hear. So if I tell you that of all the great cities, the gifts, SITTIES, that the clairvoyance, the sensing is the lowest, that it's the least of the senses, the highest of the senses, the gift, the most accurate in my experience is the feel, which belongs to spleen. So this idea that because that is more about being a fish in the ocean, because we are swimming in all the ancestors all the time.
So you do, okay, I don't want to, let's see how I want to word this, because people want direct communication, right? They want what Donna had with Balashim, right? They want the direct communication where someone's like, hey, Sarah, it's your Uncle Joe from the Afterlife, buy that stock or whatever it is, right? Like that's what people want. Or, we just had this whole conversation in one of our groups. They want to get in touch with their parents and let them know that they were okay. So they want that communication to go both ways. They want to be able to call up and not have the fizzy disbursement of the soul, but Bruce Lipton idea of tuning in. So the dad or mom isn't embodied anymore, but I can still tune in somehow to the field of my father. Not just that he's in this field, but that it's that specific energy that was him embodied, but is still him in the field. That's what people are looking for and asking for. And since you've got such a closer connection with these field energies than a lot of people, I'm just curious, like how you support that question.
So it's happening. You're getting your answers all the time. The enlightenment is not. It's us that flicker. We flicker. It's there all the time. So it is you. It is you. So when we talk about, for instance, I had an event that was happening in August that people had planned on for a long time being here. Really expensive. Took a lot of money. Lots of plans. And my mother decides that she's going to die this week. So I'm like, oh my God, if my mother dies this week, I will kill her. So it's Tuesday before the event. People are coming on Thursday from all over the world to study, right? And I just am lost. So I sit there and I'm thinking, okay, I have access to this information. All right, Mom, send me a sign. And I literally said, I don't want that bullshit. There's a crow on the 7th branch of the oak tree at 6:05 in the eastern sky. I don't want that answer. I want it in writing and I want to hear it. So I asked for this one and this one specifically. So the next morning I get up, it's Wednesday, everybody's coming on Thursday. I'm just absolutely a wreck. So I get a phone call from my mom. My mom has her own phone, but she never uses it. She only has for pictures. My dad. So my dad, they call me. It's their phone. She calls me on her phone and there's a message and she's really, really sick. She's in the hospital and she says, honey, I know it's Saturday and you don't answer your phones on Saturdays because you don't like to do your devices. Well, it's Wednesday. She says, but, I don't even know why I called you. I can't remember. Okay, well, I know you got your classes happening. I guess I'll just see you on Monday. Click. I got my answer. Have your class. My mom will be here on Monday. So then, this is God's truth. So Monday comes along and I have another event starting that Wednesday, same thing. People all over the planet have come, to gather, spent lots of money to arrive to study. And I'm like, okay, is she going to die this week? So I said, okay, Mom, which Monday did you mean? So I get another phone call. Same thing. No, you don't answer your phones on Saturdays. I'll see you Monday. So what happens is we get our answers all the time. Every time you ask, it is answered. You don't hear it. That's it. So you being in that frequency and what that takes more, and that takes yoga, that takes daily energy routine, that takes tapping, that takes looking for it. That takes, because it is camouflaged in plain sight everywhere. Every answer you want is there. It's just you tuning in and finding it. So is that helpful? So I can't give you a recipe, but what I can say is that what you do is you start to really work on your senses. And that comes from the daily energy routine. That comes from being highly sensitive without letting it flatten you. So the stronger you are energetically, the more information you're going to be able to hear and feel and see and taste. Yeah.
Beautiful. I mean, that is, the field is alive and we just have to learn how to tune into it. And so a lot of these techniques and tools, I mean, even things that are clunkier isn't the right word, but like Chinese medicine, right? Using needles, like that's very physical. You are using a physical object of metal to like prick into the physical form of a human body to run something that is so unbelievably subtle, right? And so that's like a gross level of doing the same thing, of learning how to tap into the field on the gross level, and then taking that and getting finer and finer and finer so that we can do the communication between species, between, life and death, between people that are uncommunicative. There's entire populations that are nonverbal at all, and yet they're communicating. And how do we bridge those divides and communicate? And you're saying that get better at the field, get
it happens
more sensitive.
It's you turning up your volume. It is you turning up your volume because it's there all the time. Now, one of the things in my field, in the Eden field, in the Eden community, in the healing field, you'll find lots and lots of highly sensitive people who pick up on this stuff come into this field because they already have the HSPs, as we call them. I call myself an HSP. But we also know HSPs, highly sensitive people, that are absolute messes on the physiological standpoint, because they take all this information in and it does a number on their physiology. So they have the spiritual aptitude to do it, but they don't have the spiritual physiology to metabolize and make sense of it. So interestingly enough, they end up a lot in our field to be healed. So there's lots of HSPs on my table working through this onslaught of information that they're getting that really starts to do a number on their tissues. So the idea is when we start to understand that that the healing fulcrum really belongs to the spirit, 1/3 of our 365 acupoints, at least that's the number that we study in this particular school. There's many other schools with different numbers. But of the 365, 131 of them are dedicated to spirit exclusively. So 1/3 of us we are given the ability to do this with our yin and our yang. So we're given the physiology of the yin and the yang to create a body, and then we're giving a spirit to live the life. So the body is just there to hold on to that spirit. So for whatever reason, your spirit needs to go. And sometimes we say, we hang on to the spirit. I don't want this body to leave because it holds you. It holds you. But I'm telling you, they don't go anywhere. They just, it's the universal principle of law. It's physics. It's what holds the galaxies together, is what holds our physiology together. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to, I feel like this next question is going to dump us right down, and you've really already answered it, but I'm going to ask it extant just so that it's out there. Because one of the things that we work so much on in our community is longevity. And of course, that's the flavor of the month out there in the Bro Boy podcast world. And people are making billions of dollars off of how to get you to live longer. And I think the missing piece of all of that is energy. And I'd like to hear from you what you think. Well, I'm not going to editorialize. I want to know what you think are like the best tips that you have for longevity in the physical body. Maybe the answer is that, we lean into and leverage spirit, but I want to hear what you think, because I know a lot of people, they're not at the spiritual place yet. They're really just really in the physical. And so what's your thoughts? What are your thoughts on longevity?
When I was in graduate school, I had a buddy who was working on, he was a marathon runner. And so he was studying the physiology of people who run marathons all their life. So it was basically a commentary on longevity. And, and that was always the overarching kind of, is this going to help you live longer? So he was living in San Francisco at the time when I was doing this research. And when he would go into the lab in the morning, there was a hill on San Francisco where he would see all these old Asian men and women. And he found out later, because he talked to them, they were all in their 90s. One was like 88. That was the baby. And what he wanted to know, because he would see them and they were all in pretty good shape. So he wanted them to come down and be the control group for his elderly runners, right? So he came down, so he had them and he couldn't believe it. None of them had run, none of them had done yoga. They've always done Qigong. So they had the lung capacity, the heart capacity, the kidney filtering capacity, all that stuff of a young marathoner, had it all. And all they've been doing was moving the energy. And as you know, Qigong, you're moving spirit. You're not really lifting a weight. You're not really doing anything aerobic, right? Nothing. So I think that's incredible testimony to those, so you really can't be a couch potato, that physiology, unless maybe you're moving the energy while you're on the couch being a potato. So it really does lends credibility to this idea that it is absolutely nothing that you do. It's what you be, that whole be thing. So when we talk about spiritual practices, I'm not talking about praying. I'm talking about gardening. I'm talking about Qigong. I'm talking about a yoga stretch. I'm talking about a sensibility that actually takes your eye off your physiology and puts it on the correct fulcrum, the correct draw. So your spirit is the horse, your body is the cart, right? So if you nourish the horse, that cart is going to follow that horse. So when we talk about, so I don't have any other longevity tricks other than to do your thumbs. Pay attention to the points that are spiritual. That third eye point, all of these spirit points, small intestine 11, triple warmer 7. I could go on and on and on. So if we nourish those parts of us, that's what's going to actually create the longevity. So what that means is when you nurture the soul figures out how to care for your physiology because you are actually using your soul for good, not evil. Like you're not out there driving your body, you're using it for the purpose of learning to love. You're using it for the purpose of expanding compassion. You're using it to correct all those things. If your soul is on target, the soul is going to find ways to nourish the physiology. It is the biggest way I know to heal anything, is to go to the soul points, to go to the soul of the issue, get to the spirit, get the spirit happy, and the physiology follows. It is the least of us. Our physiology is the least of us, and it follows the leader. If your soul is leading, if the spirit energy is, if your electron cloud is leading, if your aura is leading, if your chakras are leading, your physiology will follow.
This is so juicy, and so juicy too that there is the scientific studies around this, right? Because of course that's where all bro boys are leaning into, and the fact that these elderly people in San Francisco, that they're mind-blowing to me, that their lung capacity was the same. That's just fascinating. I absolutely adore that. So great. Okay. So here we go. The soul is leading with compassion and love. It's going to lead to the body having longevity. And I'm going to take just a really wild pivot here because I need to hear your answer to this. We talked about this you came on and talked with our advanced teachers and brought up this idea that despite all of what's going on in the world today, which is the antithesis of compassion and love and generosity of spirit and goodness, we're seeing a lot of that, but we're seeing that at the grassroots level. At the leadership level, we are seeing anger and rage and destruction and greed, so much fucking greed. It's ridiculous. And you're saying to us that this is an absolutely great, positive, wonderful time to be alive. And so I got to just know why.
And it's getting better and better. I know. I swear, people come at me with pitchforks when I start to talk about this. It's like I have to have this outrage that the world is terrible, but it isn't. It isn't. 99.99% of what's happening is awesome and expansive. And so when we that Mother Earth has got this, and have we talked? I don't know if you and I have talked about the earth color, the aura, the violet, the indigo, all that stuff. That lecture. Have you heard me talk about that? Okay, let's spin. I know I talk about it on my podcast. Put a quarter in it. We talk a lot. We talked about it when the election happened last year. So when the Earth's aura has changed colors pretty dramatically since 1970s, and in the 70s, for many, many, many years, probably 400 or 500 years, the Earth's auric field was blue. And so when we talk about the Earth's aura, we're talking about the Earth's life color in the way that Donna Eden talks about life color. And life color in our physiology, in our energy anatomy, exists in our auric field, and it exists in what we call the sixth layer of the aura. And in that particular layer of our 6 out of 7 layers carries our purpose. And our purpose comes in a frequency of a color. So Donna talks a lot about life colors, and her life color was a blue, and the Earth's aura for many, many, many years was blue. And the blue energy is the good mother energy. It's the energy where you take care of people, you take care of the elderly, you love, you have children. So it's this blue mother energy. And with the blues came the energy of tan. And in the yin and yang of it, in the male and female of it, in that 1950s kind of Leave It to Beaver, Daddy Knows Best, Danny Thomas, whatever that was. So that whole idea, we had the blues and the tans. So the blues were the good mothers and the tans were the good fathers. Tans wanted to be good parents to their children. So you had this good mother and this good father. So the Earth's started to change, as all things do. I mean, the only thing we can count on is change. So in the late 70s, the aura of the earth began to change into a violet. It started to turn purple. And people who had blue life colors started to get into trouble because they weren't supported by the earth. Their physiology was not supported by the earth the way they had always known for their days in that particular physiology. So when the blue started to change and they were blue, they started to get sick. So Donna, we know Donna's story, the blue story. I know I had my partner at the time, her name was Candace. She was a blue, very young woman, 1981, got stage 4 melanoma. One of the things that I find fascinating is when the AIDS virus started to happen, it struck first gay men. And typically a gay man will have lots of blue in their 6th level in their aura. So it's one of the things that creates that frequency. And they started to get into trouble. So we saw that start to happen, and the world began to change. And then along comes maybe about 1988, 1990. So it was just maybe 15 years, of this transition. And then we really into the full violet. And the violet age is the metaphysical age. They're people like you and me. We're searchers. We're metaphysical searchers. Our communities are full of violet. So then we saw, Anodea Judith wrote her first book on chakras. I think it was 1987. Carolyn Mays published her first book in 88. Marianne Williamson came along. Deepak Chopra, I think, was 88 with his first book. We saw Norm Shealy come out. We saw Andrew Weil. So when I was a kid and I would go into the bookstore, which I love to do, I would go into the metaphysical section. It was about this big. And then by 1995, it was like half the bookstore, right? Everybody was writing from the violet perspective. And in the world, the violet age was only there a few years, and it really began to change. And it began to change into indigo. And so in the indigo age is the age of, indigo is the age of collaboration. It is the age of the original 5 elements, when Earth was in the middle, when the Chinese shamanic were going from the oral tradition to the written tradition, and the Earth was in the middle. That was an indigo age. The age of Atlantis was an indigo age. And the indigo age is an age that represents great advancements in technology. So the lore has it, the myths have it when you talk about Atlantis, which was believed was the last great indigo phase, the eon. In that phase, they had great technology. They believe they had computers. They believe that they did astral travel, all these great metaphysical things. But they fell. And they fell because they did not have a spiritual base in the great technology. So they were given a great gift without the character and the integrity and the spiritual foundation of that to hold that great power. So because the violet age is the age of metaphysics, and I think it's fascinating that we just inundated the planet with all these, revitalizing all these ancient spiritual traditions that came up, and then all of a sudden the indigos come along. So the indigo age is here. The indigo age is the age of technology. It's an age of collaboration. I've heard Donna, when she has lectured on this, she's told me that what does not work will fall away. What will work will stand tall. So what are we seeing? We're seeing the educational system being destroyed. We're seeing the political system being destroyed. We're seeing the medical system being destroyed. We're seeing destruction of all this. And what are we seeing? We're seeing collaborative things rise up. So you're seeing people rise up and helping. I know with this, and we are in the midst, and I don't know when I know this what day we're taping, but I don't know when it's going to be published. But right now, I know in my community, the SNAP benefits at the local library, everybody's dropping off food. There is more food than the SNAP produced. So what's happening all of a sudden is that is an indigo age. The other really interesting thing about this particular age is that it is the age of no gender. And I cannot tell you how fascinating it is to me that for some reason, people have found that trans people are absolutely this lightning rod. All of a sudden, been here thousands and billions of years, all of a sudden there's a huge lightning rod. Well, this is the age that says, there's no sex. It's, it's genderless. It's androgynous. So think about the difference, even though I really believe, we as women, I can't believe we don't have an equal rights amendment. I just can't believe we don't have an equal rights amendment, but we don't. But Lord, did that stop us? I mean, it's not stopped me. I don't need that damn piece of paper, right? So that is this age. That age is just, it's collaborative. People find each other. Hierarchy is not going to work. So I teach leadership believe it or not, in financial institutions, in the banking industry a lot. And I teach principles of, I teach people how to be better bosses. So, and how to have happiness. And, so it's a really interesting thing. But when we talk about leadership, I remember I went to a big bank in Columbia, Missouri, Mizzou, and it was a huge bank. I don't know how many branches, maybe 40 or 50 branches. And there was probably 100 of the upper echelon managers in this particular meeting, and I was going to speak. And I walked in the door, and I remember my dad, it's my dad's company I worked for a while. He said, I want you to find so-and-so. He's the leader. He's a great leader. You're just going to love him. So I walked in that room, and I couldn't find him. I could not find him. He absolutely blended in. He did not look like the head of anything. He was talking, everybody was calling him by his first name. He was helping hand out things at the door. This was the leader of this huge billion-dollar bank. And that is a collaborative leader. That is what is going to succeed. So I do not pay attention right now to this mishigash. What I look for is what I call islands of coherence. So in the principles of physics, they have a discussion called islands of coherence. And whenever there's great chaos, what the physicists start to look for, they start to look for what's working. And it can be teeny tiny. But what a physicist will do, a physicist will create a charge from this one that's working to another one that's working and bypass all the crap. Just bridge over it. To hear the bridge, are you hearing? Are you hearing? So there's islands of coherence. So I can spend all my time fighting, getting down and dirty in that mishigash, or I can go to this island and hop to this island and hop to this island and hop to this island and absolutely not participate in that, but create a completely different lane of well-being on the planet, which, by the way, is the majority of the energy. You have coherence everywhere. Link to the coherence, and all the noise will evade. Just will go away. It will not, it just won't have life. It just won't have life. So this idea of pushing back from a physics standpoint, it's only what happens is if I take all my might and I push against this, guess what? It's going to meet me. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. If I push back against that nuttiness, it's just going to get stronger. And isn't that what's happened? So I am going to participate on the islands of coherence. It does not mean I am ignoring anything. It does not mean I am finding those libraries where the snack food is. That's an island of coherence in this insanity. And I'm having fun doing that.
Yeah, you're not ignoring the suffering, but you're not participating in the suffering.
I'm going to that library, I'm picking up that food, and I'm delivering it every single day. And I'm in joy. I'm literally in joy in this chaos. And the people that are getting it are in joy. And the people dropping it off are in joy. I get to deliver it. I get goosebumps. I am in joy in the middle of this nuttiness. Lauren, that's an island of coherence in the chaos.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. This is a crazy question, and I'm going to ask it to you. Those people that are creating the incoherence, that are creating the strife and the struggle, and which for so often seems like no purpose at all. It's I appreciate the breaking down of the systems that haven't been working, and actually I sort of agree. Like, we know education and healthcare, like all of those things. Farming, like all of the things are not working. We're doing them so ass backwards. So let's correct them and do them right. When we're going to the individual person, sort of back to your original thesis about leveraging the soul, we pretty much kind of know that these, I don't like to us other, right? Like, because we are all connected, right? So, but this, you cannot deny that there are some evil actors in the world. They're just evil, like perpetuating evil, creating evil, doing things that are just horrific. And they are seemingly super healthy, strong, you know. And that question comes up a lot, like, why is my uncle so-and-so, who's like the salt of the earth, this lovely person, they're dying of cancer, and this other person who is just a monster is thriving and healthy and strong? And if your theory that leading into the spirit is what helps the physiology, how do we reconcile that?
Well, first of all, if you see it only as this life and that one life, yeah, it's really awful. But it's not that. Even then it isn't. And and I call it, every creation story, when you go into the ancients and you read every earth creation story, the Baha'is, the Buddhists, the Confucians, all the sects, they all have their own creation story, and there's always a cockroach in every single creation story. In the Garden of Eden, there was a snake. In the Baha'i, somebody drops a cockroach I think they drop a cockroach into the stew, something like that. I mean, so what that is saying is that little cockroach that is there is the actual element of the growth. So when one of my most famous cockroach stories is actually a life story. Corrie ten Boom wrote a book called The Hiding Place. And my background, my childhood background was I was a very conservative Christian, and it was a Christian book. And she was a Dutch spinster who was hiding Jews. And when she's in her late 70s, she gets discovered, and she and her spinster sister and their very elderly father end up in Auschwitz. And so the father, of course, is gone. And so these sisters are in these, horrible, horrible conditions, head lice, disease, awful, awful, awful. So every night they have 1 or 2 pages of a Bible. And several of them will gather around every night after this long and horrible day, and they will read these 2 little pages of the Bible, and they pray. And Corey's sister, at the end of every Bible study, the sister would pray and thank you, Jesus, for the head lice. So one night, Corey loses it. She's like, how can you possibly thank God for the head lice? How can you possibly say that this is okay? She just loses it? I mean, just loses it. And Corey says, if it wasn't for the head lice, we wouldn't be able to have our Bible studies at night, because the guards will not come deep into the dorms because they don't want head lice. So they're able to have this space they created an island for coherence in the deepest, darkest spot possible because of the headlights. So when we look around, we have to see the spiritual lens, Lauren, sees everything is grounds for gratitude. And what I know from the neurology of gratitude, when you have that perspective, you begin to grow neurons that connect to those other islands of coherence. That is science. That's Dr. James Doty. God bless his heart. I can't believe he's gone. But that's Dr. James Doty's greatest contribution, I believe, is how he would watch neural synapses be created in the part of the brain that would connect it to other good things. So the perspective, so it's not hard to lean into the perspective because we are hardwired to do that already. We just forget. So those evil people are here contributing to the progress of humanity. So my presence, I work on my frequency, I work on my presence because I know that is the dominating presence for every single human on the planet is the spiritual fulcrum. And if I hang there and connect with enough of those, that person, they're just all going to rise.
Wow. Thank you so much. This has just been wonderful, magical, illuminating, so powerful. I am so grateful that you're in our community and that we can share you and your wisdom out wider and wider and wider. I always learn so much. Thank you. Thank you, Sara.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you. It's been so much fun.